The massive space station floated in the darkness like a glowing city among the stars. Nari pressed her face against the transport window as their small ship approached the giant structure. She had never seen anything so huge in her life. The station was called Harmony's Edge, and it was bigger than 10 cities put together. Nari checked her weapons one more time. Her plasma pistol was hidden under her black jacket. Her combat knife was strapped to her leg. She was ready for anything. That was her job. She was a bodyguard for Earth's most important people. The transport docked with a soft bump. Nari stood up and straightened her jacket. Behind her sat Ambassador Park Dae-ho, a kind old man with gray hair who always smiled at everyone. Next to him was Dr. Kim So-ra, a young scientist with bright eyes who had invented amazing new technology. Nari's job was simple. Keep them alive. The airlock opened with a hiss. Cool air rushed in carrying strange smells. Nari stepped out first, her eyes moving everywhere at once. The docking bay was enormous. Ships from 12 different worlds were parked in neat rows. Some ships looked like giant insects. Others glowed with their own light. One ship seemed to be made of living crystal. Alien beings walked everywhere. Nari had studied pictures of them, but seeing them in person was different. The Vorthak were tall as trees and made of clear crystal that sparkled in the light. When they walked, their bodies made soft ringing sounds like wind chimes. The Nexari looked like giant bugs walking on two legs. Their skin was shiny black and their eyes were huge and yellow. They clicked and buzzed when they talked to each other. The Luminari were the strangest of all. They had no solid bodies. They looked like clouds of colored light floating through the air. When they moved, they left trails of glowing dust behind them. Ambassador Park stepped beside Nari and whistled softly. Amazing, isn't it? 12 different worlds all coming together in peace. Nari nodded but kept watching the crowds. Something felt wrong. She could not explain what it was. Maybe it was the way some of the alien guards were positioned. Maybe it was how certain exits had extra security. Her military training told her to trust her feelings. A group of tall aliens approached them. These were the official greeters. Their leader was a Vorthak whose crystal body was deep blue. When he spoke, his voice sounded like music. Welcome, honored guests from Earth. I am Guide Telmar. Please follow me to the main reception area. The group walked through long corridors filled with incredible sights. The walls showed moving pictures of different worlds. One wall displayed Earth with its blue oceans and white clouds. Another showed a world covered in purple forests. A third showed a planet made entirely of floating islands in a pink sky. Dr. So-ra walked close to Nari and whispered, "The quantum communication arrays here are incredible. They can send messages across the entire galaxy in seconds. My research helped design them." Nari smiled at the young woman but kept her eyes on their surroundings. More and more she felt like they were walking into a trap. But that was impossible. This was a peace summit. The most important peace treaty in galactic history would be signed here. They entered the main reception hall and Nari's breath caught in her throat. The room was bigger than any building she had ever seen. The ceiling was a dome of clear crystal that showed the stars outside. Thousands of beings from different worlds filled the space. Tables covered with strange foods were arranged everywhere. Music from different planets played softly in the background. At the center of the room stood 3 raised platforms. On each platform was one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Nari studied them carefully. Supreme Chancellor Vextar of the Hegemony Coalition stood on the first platform. He was a Vorthak but much larger than the others. His crystal body was deep red and energy flowed through him like liquid fire. When he moved, the very air around him seemed to bend and twist. Prime Directive Kolthes ruled the Nexari Empire from the second platform. She was huge even for a Nexari. Her black shell was covered in golden patterns that seemed to move on their own. Her forearms each ended in razor-sharp claws that could cut through steel. High Arbiter Zephyra commanded the Luminari from the third platform. Unlike other Luminari, she had taken a more solid form. She appeared as a tall woman made of silver light. Her eyes were like tiny stars, and when she spoke, reality itself seemed to listen. These 3 controlled most of the known galaxy between them. They had been enemies for thousands of years. But now they claimed they wanted peace. Ambassador Park was invited to join other diplomats near the center platforms. Nari followed at a respectful distance. Dr. So-ra stayed close to both of them. The young scientist seemed nervous. Her hand shook slightly as she adjusted her datapad. "Are you all right, Doctor?" Nari asked quietly. "It's nothing," Just excited, I suppose. Tomorrow I activate the new Galactic communication network. It will connect every world in the galaxy for the first time. Nari nodded, but something in the scientist's voice worried her. Dr. Sora sounded more scared than excited. The evening continued with speeches and ceremonies. Each of the three overlords spoke about unity and peace. They used beautiful words about different species working together. But Nari noticed things that bothered her. The overlords never looked directly at the smaller species representatives. Their own guards were positioned to block certain exits, and several times she caught them exchanging glances that seemed to carry hidden meanings. When Supreme Chancellor Vextar spoke about bringing order to the galaxy, his red crystal body pulsed brighter. When Prime Directive Kolthes talked about unity, her golden patterns moved faster across her shell. When High Arbiter Zephyra mentioned peace, her silver light grew dimmer and colder. Nari had spent years learning to read people. Her life and the lives of those she protected depended on understanding when someone was lying. Everything about these three powerful beings told her they were not being honest. As the reception continued, Nari made mental notes of everything she saw. Guard positions, exit routes, weapon placements, communication terminals. If trouble came, she would be ready. The evening finally ended and the human delegation was escorted to their quarters. Nari checked every room twice before allowing Ambassador Park and Dr. Sora to rest. She stationed herself in the hallway outside their doors. The space station grew quiet as its thousands of guests settled in for the night. Tomorrow would bring the actual peace negotiations. The day after that would be the signing ceremony. But as Nari stood guard in the dimly lit hallway, she could not shake the feeling that they had all made a terrible mistake coming here. Something was very wrong on Harmony's edge. And tomorrow she would begin to find out exactly what that something was. Nari woke up before dawn. She had only slept for 3 hours, but her body was used to running on little sleep. Years in the Korean Special Forces had trained her to be alert even when tired. She checked her weapons and stepped into the hallway. The space station was quiet in the early hours. Only maintenance workers moved through the corridors. Nari decided this was the perfect time to explore. She needed to learn every inch of this place if she was going to protect her people. She walked through empty hallways, studying the layout. Emergency exits were marked with glowing symbols. Weapon scanners were hidden in doorways. Security cameras watched every corner. But Nari noticed something strange. Some areas had no cameras at all. These were the same areas she had seen extra guards blocking yesterday. Her military implant buzzed softly in her head. The small computer device had been put in her brain during her Special Forces training. It could record sounds and decode simple messages. Right now it was picking up electronic signals from nearby. Nari followed the signals down a maintenance corridor. The sounds got stronger as she moved deeper into the station. Finally, she found the source. A ventilation grate was loose. She could hear voices coming from the other side. She carefully removed the grate and crawled into the air duct. Her small size made her perfect for this kind of work. The duct led to a large room where several aliens were talking. Nari positioned herself where she could see and hear everything. 3 figures stood around a holographic display. Nari's heart nearly stopped when she recognized them. Supreme Chancellor Vextar, Prime Directive Kolthes, and High Arbiter Zephyra, the 3 most powerful beings in the galaxy, were meeting in secret. Vextar's red crystal body pulsed as he spoke. The preparations are complete. All lesser species will be eliminated during the signing ceremony. Kolthes clicked her mandibles together. My warriors are positioned throughout the station. No one will escape. Zephyra's silver form flickered. The quantum cascade weapon is ready. It will appear to be an accident, a malfunction in the communication system. Nari's blood turned cold. They were planning to murder everyone at the Peace Summit. This was not about peace at all. It was about wiping out every species except their own. Vextar gestured to the holographic display. It showed star maps of the entire galaxy. Similar operations are taking place on 12 other stations. By tomorrow, every potential resistance leader will be dead. The galaxy will belong to us. What about the humans? Kolthes asked. They have proven unpredictable in the past. Zephyra laughed and the sound was like breaking glass. Humans are weak. Their technology is primitive. Their ambassador and scientist will die with the rest. Nari wanted to attack them right then, but she was outnumbered and outgunned. She needed proof. She activated her implant's recording function, and listened to more of their conversation. The three overlords discussed their weapon in detail. They had modified Dr. Sora's quantum communication technology. Instead of sending messages, it would send a deadly energy pulse. The pulse would target biological brains and kill every thinking being in range. Even worse, they had backup plans. If the weapon failed, they had armies hidden throughout the station. If anyone tried to escape, the station's weapons would destroy their ships. And if somehow word got out, their fleets were already moving to attack the homeworlds of every species they considered inferior. Nari had heard enough. She carefully crawled back through the air duct and replaced the grate. Her mind raced as she made her way back to the human quarters. She had to warn Ambassador Park and Dr. Sora. But when she reached their rooms, she discovered a horrible truth. Ambassador Park was awake and talking to someone. Nari listened at the door and heard his voice. But something was wrong with how he spoke. His words came too slowly. His tone was too flat. She peeked through the door's small window. Ambassador Park sat at his desk staring straight ahead. His eyes had a strange silver glow in them. A small alien device was attached to his neck just below his ear. Nari's heart sank. The aliens had gotten to him. Some kind of mind control device was making him their puppet. She thought about Dr. Sora and quickly checked the scientist's room. Dr. Sora was also awake, but she seemed normal. She was working at her computer preparing for tomorrow's activation ceremony. Nari knocked softly on the door. "Dr. Sora, it's Nari. I need to speak with you urgently." The young scientist opened the door. Her eyes were clear and focused. No silver glow. No alien device on her neck. "What's wrong, Nari? You look terrible. We're in danger, all of us. The Peace Summit is a trap." Nari quickly told Dr. Sora everything she had overheard. The scientist's face grew pale as she listened. When Nari finished, Dr. Sora sat down heavily in her chair. "That explains why they insisted on using my quantum communication design. I wondered why they made certain modifications. They said it was for better signal strength, but now I understand." "Can you stop it?" Nari asked. "Maybe, but I would need access to the main control room. And that will be heavily guarded tomorrow." Nari thought quickly. "What about Ambassador Park? Can we help him?" Dr. Sora shook her head sadly. "Those mind control devices are Vorthak technology. Once attached, they rewrite a person's thoughts completely. The ambassador we knew is gone." A noise in the hallway made both women freeze. Heavy footsteps were approaching. Nari drew her plasma pistol and moved to the door. Through the window, she could see three figures in the corridor. Captain Yoon Tae-woo and Corporal Baek Jin-ho were walking toward her. Both men were part of the human security team. But behind them walked a third figure that made Nari's blood run cold. It was Ambassador Park. But this version of him moved differently. His steps were too precise. His head turned at unnatural angles as he scanned the hallway. The alien device on his neck glowed softly in the dim light. Nari realized the controlled ambassador was leading the security team to her room. Someone had told him she was asking questions. Soon they would knock on the door expecting to find a loyal bodyguard ready to follow orders. Instead, they would find someone who knew their terrible secret. Nari looked at Dr. Sora. The young scientist was frightened but determined. "What do we do?" she whispered. "We run," Nari said, "and we find a way to stop them before tomorrow's ceremony." The footsteps stopped right outside the door. A soft knock echoed through the room. Ambassador Park's voice called out, but it sounded wrong. Too calm. Too controlled. "Nari, Dr. Sora, please open the door. We need to discuss tomorrow's security arrangements." Nari grabbed Dr. Sora's arm and pulled her toward the room's emergency exit. She had studied the station's layout carefully. There was a maintenance shaft that led to the lower levels. As they climbed into the shaft, they heard the door to the room being forced open. Angry voices filled the air behind them. Their escape had been discovered. Nari and Dr. Sora crawled through the narrow shaft as quickly as they could. Behind them, they could hear their pursuers entering the maintenance system. The hunt had begun, but Nari was not just running away. She was running toward something. If they could reach the lower levels, they might find other survivors. Other people who had noticed something was wrong. Because Nari refused to believe that humans were as weak as the overlords thought. Tomorrow they would learn exactly how dangerous a cornered human could be. The signing ceremony was about to begin. Nari crouched in a ventilation shaft high above the main amphitheater, watching thousands of beings gather below. She had spent all night moving through the station's hidden passages with Dr. Sora. Now they were running out of time. The amphitheater was the most beautiful room Nari had ever seen. The walls were made of crystal that showed images of peaceful worlds. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Colorful banners from dozens of planets hung from the curved ceiling. It looked like a celebration of unity and hope, but Nari knew better. This room would become a killing ground in just a few minutes. Dr. Sora lay beside her in the narrow shaft. The young scientist had worked all night trying to figure out how to stop the weapon. Her face was pale and her hands shook with exhaustion. "I think I found a way," she whispered. "If I can reach the main control panel, I might be able to reverse the quantum pulse. Instead of killing everyone, it could disrupt their control systems." "How close do you need to get?" Nari asked. "I need to touch the activation console directly, the one on the main stage." Nari looked down at the stage far below. It was surrounded by guards from all three alien empires. Getting there would be impossible for a normal person. But Nari was not normal. She was a soldier who had done impossible things before. The ceremony began with great fanfare. Supreme Chancellor Vextar rose from his crystal throne. His red body blazed with energy as he spoke to the crowd. "Today we make history. Today all species join together in eternal peace." The crowd cheered, but Nari noticed something terrible. Many of the smaller species representatives had silver glows in their eyes. Mind control devices were attached to their necks. The aliens had been converting people all night. Prime Directive Kolthes stepped forward next. Her massive insect body gleamed under the lights. "The Nexari Empire pledges its strength to this new alliance." More cheers rose from the crowd. But Nari saw Nexari soldiers moving into position around the room. They carried weapons designed to look like ceremonial decorations. High Arbiter Zephyra floated above the stage like a silver ghost. When she spoke, her voice echoed from everywhere at once. "The Luminary Dominion offers its wisdom to guide this union." Energy shields began powering up around the three overlords. They were getting ready for what came next. Ambassador Park walked onto the stage. The mind control device on his neck pulsed with soft light. He moved like a robot following programming instead of a human being. Nari's heart ached seeing him like this. "On behalf of Earth," the controlled ambassador said, "I present Dr. Kim Sora to activate the Galactic Communication Network." Dr. Sora appeared on the stage escorted by alien guards. But Nari knew this was not the real Dr. Sora. The real one was lying beside her in the ventilation shaft. This was a shape-shifting alien wearing the scientist's face. The fake Dr. Sora approached the quantum communication console. The device hummed with deadly energy. When it activated, every thinking being in the amphitheater would die instantly. Then similar devices across the galaxy would do the same thing to billions of others. Nari could not wait any longer. She kicked out the ventilation grate and dropped into the amphitheater. Her military training took over as she fell toward the stage. She landed in a perfect combat roll and came up running. The fake Dr. Sora's hand was reaching for the activation switch. Nari tackled her away from the console just as energy began building in the device. The quantum weapon powered up, but with no one to guide it, the energy scattered harmlessly into the amphitheater's shielding. Chaos erupted immediately. The three overlords dropped all pretense of peace. Supreme Chancellor Vextar's crystal body blazed with killing fire. "Eliminate all inferior species immediately," he roared. Energy beams shot from his hands, striking delegates throughout the crowd. Beings from peaceful worlds screamed as they were burned alive. The crystal walls that had shown beautiful planets now reflected scenes of horror and death. Prime Directive Kolthes let out a shriek that shattered glass throughout the amphitheater. Hidden doors burst open and Nexari warriors poured into the room. Their weapons were no longer disguised. Sharp claws and energy guns cut down anyone who tried to run. High Arbiter Zephyra activated the station's lockdown systems. Blast doors slammed shut, trapping everyone inside. Emergency lighting bathed everything in red. Warning sirens wailed like voices of the dying. Nari found herself fighting for her life surrounded by alien soldiers. Her plasma pistol took down 3 Nexari warriors before running out of power. She switched to her combat knife and used her speed to stay ahead of their claws. Captain Yoon Tae-woo's voice echoed over the battle sounds. "Human security teams protect the evacuation routes." Nari saw him leading a group of human soldiers against overwhelming odds. They were buying time for civilians to escape, but there was nowhere to run. The amphitheater had become a trap with no way out. Corporal Baek Jin-ho appeared at Nari's side fighting off insect warriors with his rifle. The captain ordered me to find you, he shouted over the noise. We need to get you out of here. I'm not leaving, Nari yelled back. Too many people need help. She looked around the amphitheater and saw terrible things. Nexari soldiers were herding groups of smaller species together for execution. Vorthak energy weapons were cutting through the crowd like deadly light shows. Luminari forces were using mind control to turn some beings against their own friends. But Nari also saw something that gave her hope. Not everyone was running or surrendering. Some beings were fighting back. A group of young Nexari refused to follow their empire's orders and were helping evacuate civilians. Several Vorthak artists used their crystal manipulation abilities to create shields protecting others. Even some Luminari were breaking their programming to resist the Overlords. The real Dr. Sora dropped down from the ventilation shaft behind Nari. I can still stop the weapon, she said. But I need you to get me to that console. Nari looked at the stage where the quantum device still hummed with power. All three Overlords were focused on the slaughter around them. Supreme Chancellor Vextar was personally executing delegate leaders. Prime Directive Kolthes was commanding her warriors in systematic murder. High Arbiter Zephyra was working to activate similar weapons on other stations. Getting to that console meant fighting through an army of alien soldiers and facing three of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. It was suicide, but it was also their only chance to save everyone. Captain Yun Taewoo fell as energy beams cut him down. His last act was throwing a grenade that destroyed a Nexari weapon platform. Corporal Baek Jin-ho screamed in rage and charged toward the aliens who killed his captain. Nari knew she would never see her friend alive again. Can you really stop them? She asked Dr. Sora. I think so, but someone has to protect me while I work. Nari looked at the chaos around them. Bodies covered the floor. The beautiful amphitheater was becoming a tomb. Soon the Overlords would finish here and move on to murder billions more across the galaxy. Unless one human bodyguard could do the impossible one more time. Stay close to me, Nari told Dr. Sora. We're going to end this. She began fighting her way toward the stage, carrying the galaxy's last hope on her shoulders. Nari and Dr. Sora crawled through the dark maintenance tunnels beneath the amphitheater. The sounds of battle echoed through the metal walls above them. Screams and weapon fire mixed together in a horrible symphony of death. They had barely escaped the main chamber. Nari had fought their way to an emergency hatch while Dr. Sora worked frantically at a wall panel. The young scientist had managed to trigger a power surge that temporarily disrupted the alien weapons. In that brief moment of chaos, they had slipped away. But Nari knew their escape was only temporary. The Overlords would hunt them down soon enough. The tunnel opened into a large maintenance bay filled with broken machinery and spare parts. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. Dr. Sora collapsed against a support beam, breathing heavily. I need to rest, she gasped. I can't run anymore. Nari checked the tunnel behind them. No sounds of pursuit yet, but that would change soon. She helped Dr. Sora to a hidden corner behind some large equipment. Tell me about the weapon, Nari said. Is there really a way to stop it? Dr. Sora nodded weakly. The quantum cascade works by targeting brain patterns. But every species has different neural frequencies. The Overlords designed it to kill all the patterns except their own. What if we could change that? In theory, yes. If I could access the main control system, I could reverse the targeting. Instead of killing other species, it would disrupt the Overlord's technology. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Their pursuers had found their trail. Nari helped Dr. Sora stand up. We need allies. There must be other survivors hiding somewhere. They moved deeper into the station's lower levels. The maintenance areas were a maze of corridors and storage rooms. Nari used her military training to navigate the confusing layout. Her enhanced hearing picked up sounds that told her where enemies were moving. In a supply closet, they found their first survivor. It was a young Nexari engineer named Tor Ani. Her black carapace was cracked and green blood seeped from several wounds. She cowered behind stacks of equipment parts. Please don't hurt me. She clicked in broken human language. I tried to stop them. I tried to warn people. Nari knelt beside the injured alien. You spoke against your own empire? Torani's large yellow eyes filled with tears. The Prime Directive was wrong. Murder is not unity. I could not be part of it anymore. Dr. Sora used her medical training to treat Torani's wounds. Can you help us access the station's systems? Yes, Torani replied. I know all the engineering networks, but the Overlords have locked down everything important. Not everything, Nari said. They can't control what they don't know about. She had been studying the station's layout for days. There were old emergency systems that most people had forgotten, backup networks that the overlords might have missed. The group moved to an abandoned control room deep in the station's core. Torani connected her engineering tools to a dusty computer terminal. Screens flickered to life showing station schematics. The main quantum array is heavily guarded, Torani said, but there are secondary access points they might not be watching. Dr. Sora studied the displays. If we could reach maintenance level 7, we might be able to tap into the control circuits. That area is crawling with Nexari soldiers, Torani warned. Then we make them look somewhere else, Nari said. She began planning a series of diversions, small explosions to draw guards away from key areas, false alarms to confuse their communications, hit-and-run attacks to keep them off balance. But first they needed more help. Over the next several hours they found other survivors hiding throughout the lower levels. There was Kristval, a Vorthak artist whose crystal body had turned a sad blue color. She had refused to follow Supreme Chancellor Vextar's orders to execute civilians. Art is about creating beauty, she sang in her musical voice, not destroying it. They also found several members of smaller species who had avoided the initial slaughter, a family of tree-like beings from the Sylvan worlds, a group of rock creatures from the asteroid mining colonies, even a few humans from the diplomatic staff who had hidden when the killing began. Nari organized them into teams. The Vorthak could manipulate crystal and metal with their minds. The Sylvan beings were experts at moving quietly through small spaces. The rock creatures were incredibly strong and tough. The humans provided military training and weapons expertise. It was not an army. It was barely even a squad. But it was a start. "What's our objective?" asked one of the human diplomats. "Stop the quantum weapon," Nari replied. "And make sure the galaxy knows what really happened here." Dr. Sora had been working on the technical problems. "I found something interesting in the station's communication logs. The overlords are coordinating with similar operations on 12 other stations. If we can disrupt their command network, we might be able to warn the other locations." Torani's engineering skills proved invaluable. She could hack into systems that seemed impossible to access. Her knowledge of Nexari technology let her understand how their control networks operated. Kristval used her artistic abilities in ways Nari never expected. She could reshape metal into perfect tools and weapons. Her crystal manipulation let her open locked doors and disable security systems. The other survivors each contributed their own special skills. The tree beings could squeeze through tiny spaces and plant listening devices. The rock creatures could break through walls and create new passages. The human diplomats knew the station's political layout and could predict where the overlords would focus their attention. Nari felt something she had not experienced since the massacre began. Hope. Their first real mission was a raid on a communication center. Nari led a small team through forgotten maintenance shafts while Torani disabled the security systems. They planted devices that would let Dr. Sora monitor the overlords' communications. The raid was a complete success. They gathered intelligence about guard rotations, weapon placements, and the overlords' future plans. But the information they discovered was terrifying. The weapon would be fully charged in 18 hours. When it fired, it would not just kill everyone on this station. It would send a signal to the other 11 stations telling them to fire as well. Billions of beings across the galaxy would die in the same moment. Even worse, the overlords had backup plans. If the weapon failed, they had hidden armies ready to attack every major world. If those armies failed, they had planet-killing weapons aimed at the home systems of every species they wanted to eliminate. "We're not just fighting for our lives," Dr. Sora said quietly. "We're fighting for every living thing in the galaxy." Nari looked at their small group of survivors. A few dozen beings from different worlds united by their refusal to accept evil. Against them were 3 vast empires with technology far beyond anything humans had ever imagined. It should have been hopeless. But Nari remembered something her old military instructor had taught her. The strongest armies could be defeated if their enemies refused to give up. "Tomorrow we take the fight to them," she announced. "We're going to show these overlords what happens when you threaten humanity's friends." The resistance had found its purpose. Now they just had to find the courage to see it through. 16 hours remained before the weapon would fire. Nari sat in the abandoned control room staring at star maps that showed the locations of all 12 death stations. Each one would murder millions of innocent beings when the countdown reached 0. Dr. Sora had been working without sleep trying to find a way to stop the quantum cascade. Her eyes were red with exhaustion, but she refused to rest. Torani helped her analyze the weapon's programming while Val used her crystal abilities to build better computer interfaces. "I think I found something," Dr. Sora said suddenly. "Look at these brain scan patterns from the medical database." She displayed neural maps from dozens of different species. Each one showed unique patterns of electrical activity. The Vorthak brains pulsed with crystalline harmonics. The Nixari minds buzzed with insect-like frequencies. The Luminari consciousness flowed like waves of pure energy. "Every species has its own neural signature," Dr. Sora explained. "The weapon targets these signatures to kill specific types of minds." "What about humans?" Nari asked. Dr. Sora pulled up human brain scans and Nari gasped. The human patterns looked completely different from all the others. Instead of organized waves or geometric patterns, human minds showed chaotic swirls of activity that seemed almost random. "We're different," Dr. Sora whispered. "Really different. Our brains developed on Earth under unique conditions. The planet's magnetic field and cosmic radiation created neural pathways that don't exist in any other species." Torani studied the displays with her large, compound eyes. "These patterns make no sense. How do humans think with such disorder in their minds?" "It's not disorder," Dr. Sora realized. "It's adaptability. Human brains can change and reorganize themselves in ways other species can't. That's why we're so unpredictable." Nari began to understand. "The overlords can't control us because they can't predict us." "More than that," Dr. Sora said excitedly. "I don't think their weapons work properly on human brains. The quantum targeting system is designed for organized neural patterns, but human minds are too chaotic to lock onto." She pulled up test data from the weapon's calibration. The targeting computer had run simulations on every known species, but when it tried to model human consciousness, the results were listed as inconclusive. "They can't target what they can't understand," Dr. Sora breathed. "Humans might be immune to the quantum cascade." Nari felt a dangerous idea forming in her mind. "What if we could use that immunity somehow? I would need to run more tests. But in theory, a human brain might be able to disrupt the weapon's targeting system just by being exposed to the quantum field." Kristval's blue crystal body chimed with worry. "That sounds extremely dangerous. The energy levels involved could kill you, or they might not," Nari said. "If Dr. Sora is right, human neural chaos might protect me from quantum weapons." She thought about all the times in human history when people had done impossible things. Soldiers who fought overwhelming odds because they refused to surrender. Explorers who sailed into unknown seas because they dreamed of new lands. Scientists who challenged accepted truth because they believed in something better. Maybe being unpredictable was humanity's greatest strength. "I need to reach the main quantum array," Nari decided. "If I can get close enough during the activation sequence, maybe I can disrupt it from the inside." "That's suicide," one of the human diplomats protested. "The array is in the heart of the Overlord's stronghold," Nari smiled grimly. "Then they won't expect anyone to be crazy enough to attack it directly." Dr. Sora worked frantically to understand more about human neural immunity. She discovered that the effect was strongest in people who had experienced combat stress. The chaos of battle actually enhanced the brain's natural unpredictability. "Military training changes human neural patterns," she explained. "Soldiers develop even more chaotic brain activity than civilians. The Overlord's quantum weapons probably can't even detect your mind properly." Nari had spent years as a Special Forces operative. Her brain had been rewired by countless dangerous missions. If anyone could survive exposure to the quantum cascade, it would be someone like her. But she would not go alone. Torani had been monitoring the Overlord's communications. She discovered that their control systems were vulnerable to the same type of disruption. If human neural chaos could affect their weapons, it might also interfere with their command networks. "The Overlords coordinate everything through quantum links," Torani explained. "If we could introduce human brain patterns into their network, it might cause system-wide failures." Val had been experimenting with her crystal manipulation abilities. She found she could create devices that would amplify and broadcast neural patterns. "I can build a transmitter that will project human thought patterns across the entire station." The plan that emerged was incredibly dangerous. Nari would fight her way to the quantum array during the final countdown. When the weapon activated, she would allow herself to be caught in its field. Her chaotic human brain patterns would disrupt the targeting system and hopefully spread through the Overlords. network causing widespread failures. Meanwhile, the other resistance members would launch simultaneous attacks on key systems. Throughout the station, with their control network disrupted, the overlords would be vulnerable to conventional assault. "What are the chances this will work?" asked one of the Sylvan tree beings. "I have no idea," Nari admitted, "but it's better than waiting here to die." She spent the remaining hours preparing for what might be her final mission. She checked her weapons and equipment one last time. Her plasma pistol was fully charged. Her combat knife was sharp and ready. She carried explosives that could damage the quantum array if her neural disruption failed. More importantly, she carried the hopes of everyone who refused to bow to tyranny. The other survivors prepared their own missions. Torani would hack into the station's life support systems and flood the Overlord's stronghold with disruptive energy. Kristval would use her abilities to create chaos in their communication networks. The tree beings would plant explosives in critical locations. The rock creatures would block escape routes to prevent the Overlords from fleeing. As the final countdown began, Nari made her way toward the center of the station. The corridors were filled with alien guards, but her military training let her move through shadows and avoid detection. She reached an observation deck overlooking the main quantum chamber. The huge weapon hummed with deadly energy. All three overlords stood around it like priests worshipping a god of death. Supreme Chancellor Vextar's red crystal body blazed with anticipation. "In 10 minutes, every inferior species will be extinct. The galaxy will finally know true order." Prime Directive Kulthes clicked her mandibles in excitement. "My warriors stand ready to claim every world as soon as the weapon fires." High Arbiter Zephara's silver form flickered with cruel pleasure. "The other stations report ready. Billions will die in perfect synchronization." Nari checked her equipment one final time. In a few minutes she would drop into that chamber and face 3 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Her chances of survival were essentially 0, but sometimes impossible was just another word for human. The countdown reached 5 minutes. Nari took a deep breath and prepared to show the overlords what happened when they underestimated the species that had crawled out of Earth's chaos to reach the stars. The countdown reached 2 minutes. Nari dropped through the observation deck's emergency hatch into the quantum chamber below. She landed hard but rolled to absorb the impact. 3 pairs of alien eyes turned toward her in shock. Supreme Chancellor Vextar's red crystal body flared with rage. "Impossible. How did one human penetrate our defenses?" "The same way humans always do," Nari replied, drawing her plasma pistol. "By refusing to give up." She opened fire on the quantum array's control systems. Energy bolts sparked off crystal surfaces and shattered delicate equipment. But the massive weapon was too well protected. Her shots barely scratched its armored housing. Prime Directive Kulthes shrieked and charged toward Nari with razor-sharp claws extended. The giant insect moved faster than anything that size should be able to. Nari barely dodged the attack that would have cut her in half. High Arbiter Zephara floated above the battle like a silver ghost. Energy beams shot from her hands toward Nari. The human soldier dove behind a support pillar as deadly light scorched the air where she had been standing. "Foolish creature," Zephara's voice echoed from everywhere. "You cannot stop what has already begun. In 90 seconds the weapon will fire and your pathetic species will be extinct." Nari smiled grimly. "That's what you don't understand about humans. We're at our best when things look hopeless." She activated the communicator Dr. Sora had given her. "All teams execute now." Throughout the station, the resistance struck simultaneously. Torani's engineering expertise brought down power grids and communication networks. Kristval's crystal manipulation jammed the Overlord's quantum links. The tree beings triggered explosives that sealed critical passages. The rock creatures began their assault on guard positions. But in the quantum chamber, 3 Overlords still controlled the ultimate weapon. Vextar raised his arms and energy poured from his crystalline body. The attack hit Nari like a sledgehammer and threw her across the room. She crashed into a wall and tasted blood, but she forced herself to stand up. "Stay down, human," Vextar commanded. "Accept your species' fate with dignity." Nari spat blood and raised her combat knife. "Dignity is earned by fighting, not by surrendering." The countdown reached 60 seconds. Kulthes attacked again with her 4 clawed arms. Nari used her smaller size and human agility to stay ahead of the slashing weapons. She managed to cut one of the insect's arms with her knife, but the wound barely slowed the alien warrior. Zephara's energy beams forced Nari to keep moving. The chamber filled with smoke and sparks as missed shots destroyed equipment, but the quantum weapon continued its countdown undisturbed. 30 seconds remaining. Nari was running out of time and options. She could not defeat 3 overlords in direct combat, but she did not need to defeat them. She just needed to reach the quantum array. Dr. Sora's voice crackled through the communicator. Nari, the weapon is about to activate. Get as close to the energy field as possible. Your neural patterns might disrupt it. Might is not good enough, Nari replied, but she ran toward the massive device anyway. The 3 overlords moved to block her path. Vextar's crystal body blazed with killing fire. Kolthes raised her claws for a final strike. Zephyra gathered silver energy that could unmake matter itself. 10 seconds. Nari threw herself at the quantum array just as it began to fire. The weapon's energy field caught her in its grip like a giant invisible hand. She felt the deadly radiation washing over her body, looking for neural patterns to destroy. But her chaotic human brain confounded the targeting system. Instead of finding organized thoughts to eliminate, the weapon encountered the beautiful randomness of human consciousness. 5 seconds. The quantum cascade began to malfunction. Instead of sending death across the galaxy, it started broadcasting Nari's neural patterns through the Overlord's own communication network. Her human unpredictability spread like a virus through their quantum links. 3 seconds. Vextar screamed as his crystal body began to crack. The energy that powered him could not handle the chaotic patterns flooding his mind. What is happening? 2 seconds. Kolthes's hive mind connection shattered as human randomness disrupted her species' organized thinking. She fell to the floor, clicking in confusion. I cannot hear my empire anymore. 1 second, Zephyra's silver form flickered and wavered. Her control over quantum forces failed as human neural chaos infected her consciousness. This is impossible. Order cannot yield to disorder. 0. The quantum weapon fired, but instead of death, it broadcast freedom. Across 12 stations throughout the galaxy, the Overlord's control systems collapsed. Mind control devices stopped working. Quantum weapons failed. Armies that had been programmed to kill suddenly remembered they had choices. The 3 overlords in the chamber were caught in the full force of their own weapon turned against them. Vextar's crystal body shattered into 1,000 sparkling fragments. Kolthes's insect form collapsed as her neural networks burned out. Zephyra's silver light faded until only empty air remained. Nari lay on the floor beside the smoking ruins of the quantum array. Her body was burned and broken, but she was alive. More importantly, she was still human. The weapon had not destroyed her chaotic neural patterns. Instead, it had amplified them across the galaxy. Dr. Sora and the other survivors rushed into the chamber. The young scientist knelt beside Nari and checked her vital signs. You did it, Dr. Sora whispered. The quantum cascade worked in reverse. Instead of killing inferior species, it freed them from overlord control. Torani was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. Her compound eyes glowed with excitement. All 12 stations report the same thing. The Overlord's forces are surrendering or switching sides. Their empires are collapsing. Kristval's crystal body chimed with joy as she used her abilities to heal Nari's injuries. The resistance movements on every world are rising up. They know they are free. Over the following days, rescue ships arrived from dozens of planets, but they came not as conquerors or liberators. They came as friends and equals. The Universal Peace Accord was finally signed in the same amphitheater where the Overlords had tried to commit genocide. But this time it was a real treaty between free species choosing to work together. Nari stood at the ceremony watching representatives from hundreds of worlds shake hands and tentacles and crystalline appendages. Beings who had been enemies for thousands of years were learning to trust each other. Ambassador. Park had recovered from his mind control and was back to his old cheerful self. Dr. Sora received honors from scientific institutions across the galaxy for her role in developing the technology that saved everyone. Torani was elected as the first Nexari representative to the new Galactic Council. Kristval's art was displayed in museums on every civilized world. But the real celebration was quieter and more personal. It happened in small moments when different species helped each other without being ordered to do so. When Vorthak artists taught human children how to make music with crystal. When Nexari engineers shared their technology freely instead of hoarding it. When Luminari philosophers discussed the meaning of freedom with beings from primitive worlds. Nari was offered medals and titles and honors from 100 different governments. She turned them all down. Her reward was simpler and more valuable. She got to go home to Earth knowing that humans had a place among the stars. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as the species that reminded the galaxy what it meant to be free. The quantum communication network that Dr. Sora had designed finally worked as intended. Messages of friendship and cooperation flowed between worlds faster than light. Trade agreements replaced territorial disputes. Cultural exchanges replaced military buildups. Hope replaced fear. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts and misunderstandings. Some worlds chose isolation over cooperation. A few species tried to restart the old empire systems. But the Overlords' greatest weapon had become their ultimate defeat. Human neural chaos had taught the galaxy that unpredictability was not a weakness. It was the foundation of freedom itself. Nari returned to her job as a bodyguard, but now she protected beings from many worlds. Her reputation had spread across the galaxy. When important people needed protection, they asked for the human who had defeated 3 overlords with nothing but courage and a chaotic mind. She never forgot the friends who had died fighting for freedom. Captain Yoon Tae-woo and Corporal Baek Jin-ho were honored as heroes on Earth and dozens of other worlds. Their sacrifice had meaning because it led to something better. Sometimes Nari would stand on Earth's surface looking up at the stars and smile. Somewhere out there, beings from hundreds of worlds were living in freedom because one human soldier had refused to accept the impossible. The galaxy was finally at peace. Not the false peace of the overlords, tyranny, but the real peace that came when different people chose to respect each other. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that humans had always known, but the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Freedom was worth fighting for.